What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make hunting, public lands? I mean, obviously compared to private, it is a lot more competitive. There's going to be a lot more pressure and stuff like that. And for a lot of people, let's say if they want to go out of state or whatever, most people have a 9 to 5. They're not, so they're only basically weekend warriors. What do you see being the biggest mistake that they make on either these out-of-state hunts, or maybe if they go to a new WMA or something just outside of their town?
Well, I think the biggest mistake most bow hunters, and I'm not going to say it's a mistake, I just don't think they put a lot of thought into it, even though it's the biggest advantage a hunter can have against white-tailed deer, is scent control. Most hunters, probably 95 to 98% of deer hunters, do not have a scent control regimen that works, where you don't have to pay attention to wind. When you can eliminate the wind direction, swirling winds, thermal drafts, that's a game changer. That's the biggest game changer there is in deer hunting. So scent control would be number one. Probably the next thing is, it would depend on what you want to kill. If you're after mature bucks, you have to have the mindset of don't set up anything in an open area. You've got to have security cover. When I go out and scout public lands in Michigan, 90% of the stands that I see are in open timber, because people like to see deer, and a lot of people, while I may want to kill a mature buck, 90% of the hunters want to kill any buck or any doe that are hunting public land, So, it depends on what your goals are. If you're goal oriented, if you're trying to kill mature bucks, you got to pay attention to security cover, security cover, security cover. Everything has to be security cover oriented if you're in a pressured area. If you just want to kill deer, you want to be at food, some semblance of food, natural food. Deer have a way of knowing what's real natural food and what's not. I know a lot of guys that used to hunt bait when baiting was legal in Michigan, and I know a lot of guys that still do hunt bait, even though baiting is illegal in Michigan. And, they see does and fawns there on a regular basis. But buck-wise, after a hunt or two, even the 1.5 and 2.5-year-old bucks that were coming in, quit coming in, because they can, even if they didn't come in while the hunter was in the tree, they can smell that he'd been in there. If he didn't have a scent control, they can smell that he'd been in there, and, his intrusions. And so your goals as a hunter would play into what mistake they make. In my opinion, I would never hunt open timber. That one last year is the first time I've done it since 1977. But again, 90% plus of the stands I see on public land, I've actually got videos on my YouTube channel, scouting public land, and there's ladder stands here, hang-ons over here. They're all over in the open timber, and it was primarily, this one particular piece was all oaks. So they were seeing deer. I'm sure they were seeing deer, but they weren't going to kill any decent bucks. And it was kind of weird because there was swamps on both sides of this open timber. This open timber was probably 40 acres, but there was swamps on both sides with a river on one side. And as soon as I stepped off into that brush edge going down towards the river, or the brush edge going into the other cattail swamp on the other side, there was rubs all up and down through that edge. And there was small saplings out in the open timber. I saw one rub in the open timber. Everything was along the edges in the security cover. And I saw one stand that I thought, this guy has a possibility of killing a decent buck in this stand in the daytime.
It's interesting you say that about the stands, because I think I've had a similar experience where you walk through and you see a stand, and rarely am I like, man, that's a great spot. I'm usually like, what was this guy thinking? Or it's usually like he brings in a ladder stand. I'm like, oh, that's where he got tired and decided I can't take this any further.
That's a very valid point right there.
Yeah, it's like about 200, 250. I'm like, yeah, he got wore out. This was it for him right here. And I don't blame him. If I was carrying one of those, I'd be sitting right there too. So,
and a ladder stand is, that's totally off topic, but a ladder stand's another thing. When you're hunting in a pressured area, a mature buck walking through an area, he's going to pick out a ladder stand. He's going to take his eyes right up to the top of it. He's lived 3 or 4.5 years old. He's dealt with ladder stand hunters before. And, you know, you can see a black frame steel ladder stand against a gray or an olive drab bark tree, and they just follow it right up to the top. And I've talked to quite a few hunters that have hunted in ladder stands with gun hunters, which is pretty common. And they say it happens all the time. Does come through and they'll, you know, follow the ladder right up to the top and, you know, sitting there and then swoop. So, yeah, ladder stands are not only heavy, you know, for shooting mature bucks in pressured areas, they're not too cool as far as getting opportunities.